Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, year number 25 of this program. We thank you for being parts of it for all these years, and we have a lot to get into tonight. We're going to talk about the Pirates and what they do with their hitting woes. We'll also get into generally the NFL draft and 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks. Which one will be a tremendous player, which one won't? But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers draft. And here to talk about it are 3 gentlemen who spent all weekend over there. Chris Adamski from the Trib. Chris with the hat on. He could have used your hat, Ray Fittipaldo, because it's all red today from the Post-Gazette. What were you doing today, Ray?
I was outside at a baseball tournament all day, and yes, I forgot my sunscreen.
And Jeff Hathhorn seated to his left. So let's get right into it. Ray, I'll start with you on this one. I think all of us will probably say it's a very good draft for the Steelers, so I won't ask you for a grade. Yeah. But what do you think the message is the Steelers are sending with what they did?
Well, they stayed true to their word. They want to build through the trenches. Omar Khan and Andy Weidel have been consistent with that. And when they drafted Mason McCormick in the 4th round to give them 3 offensive linemen drafted, I was a little bit skeptical. But then Omar explained it after the draft. James Daniels is a free agent after the season. Nate Herbig, also a free agent after the season. So it kind of makes sense. If you want to be a team that runs the football and plays a physical brand of football, you got to have good offensive linemen, and I think they accomplished that this weekend.
I think McCormick's one of my favorite picks of the draft in terms of just because I know he went to 1AA FCS, but aside from that, you have an experienced player that was a multi-time All-American at that level and multi-time national champion at that level. I think if he would have gone to a bigger school, he would have been a much higher draft pick. So but you know, there's a lot of draft picks to like out of it. But yeah, as I wrote about on TribLive.com today, it reminds me.
That's all right. Shameless plugs are allowed on this show. Go ahead.
All right. The camera's right on me, too. It was crazy. But if you remember, 15 years ago, it was 5 out of 8 of their first or second picks in every draft they had spent on the Pouncey, the Marquise Gilbert, to Castro. They really decided, you know what, we're going to totally redo this line. And then for about a decade, they had a really good offensive line, one of the best in football. They grew up together. They stayed together. And that's what they envision here. We'll see how it all works out. But with these picks, the 2 firsts and a second, and all the investment they have draft capital in it now, it looks like that could be their future.
Chris is like a NASCAR driver. He's dropping plugs and sponsors. Who knows what's next?
Any patches?
Listen, I thought they got back to that toughness, that Steeler way. I mean, remember a couple years ago when they were clowned by the Bengals, and rightly so, for being soft. They're not soft anymore. They've helped that line. They've really made Pat Meyer's job a lot easier because not only have they added new pieces, but I think it's helped with a mindset that this group wants to have. And I think Frazier is going to be a stud. An absolute stud in the middle. You can argue the importance of having a center. This guy, he plays hard. He knows leverage. He excelled at West Virginia. I mean, Foitano is a nice player. I think Frazier's going to be the best.
And whatever reservations people have about center, the whole running back thing, don't take him in the 1st round. You take him in the 2nd round, you don't have to worry. That there's nothing to do with that. So you can feel really comfortable. And you know, Creed Humphrey was taken right around that spot a few years ago. You get really good centers a lot of times in the 2nd round. So that also, you're able to use a premium pick on a tackle, too, while getting a good center.
Ray, let me ask you about what to do with the 2 tackles now. Broderick Jones, left, right. Fautanu left, right, and what does that mean for Dan Moore, in your opinion?
You know, listen, it was their desire to get Broderick Jones over to the left side before this draft. But what if it turns out that Fautanu is a better left tackle? I think they have to get into training camp and OTAs and let it play out. The good news is Broderick Jones played well at right tackle, well enough to stay there if Fautanu was the guy at left tackle. As far as Dan Moore goes, number one, he has to learn how to play right tackle. If he wants to be the swing tackle. If he can't do that, I don't know if he's going to be on the roster. So we'll see how that plays out. Mike Tallman has said he stayed on the left side because he can't play the right side. But if you're going to be the swing guy, Bob, you got to be able to play both sides.
All right, give me your take, Jeff.
No, I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Moore is the starting left tackle, just given what we've seen the last few years. With the exception of Najee, the high picks don't start right away. He works them in. But
and quite frankly, last year was only because Chooks had some issue, and if he didn't have the issue, would he have still continued to start?
Or was
Eventually, they had to get Broderick Jones in there, but it took him a long time.
Was that an excuse just to get Broderick Jones in the lineup?
Maybe
too?
so, but
it took 8 weeks regardless, which is template for what could happen now.
And this may be a different case. I'm just saying, based on what we've seen over the last couple of years, but I'll say this. I know there are times where we hear, well, let's wait to camp, and it's kind of like, they made the decision. But I think truly they want to see how do they play on the right side. What Tano said, they cross-trained in practice and that he worked a lot on the right side in practice. But, of course, practice and games are different.
It is crazy because each of those guys, Broderick Jones for 9 games at the NFL level and Fuatanu for 15 games at the college football level, were really good at right and left tackle respectively, and yet we already want to switch them. So, which makes sense, and I do too, and I see why you do. But you saw what happened. We have real world experience that both of them can excel at their certain spot they're at now.
All right, we'll continue this when we come back. We're going to talk about what is the name you'll give me if I ask these guys sleeper pick. Give me the one guy who all surprise you and come up and be better than you thought. We'll get into that, and also the quarterbacks taken in this draft. 6 of them in the first 12. Which one will be the real deal? That's all coming up right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We continue with the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, talking about the Steelers draft. Everyone seems to think it was a slam dunk for Omar Khan. All you have to do is go on Twitter and look at all the memes of him walking around because it's pretty funny to watch, and I'm sure he gets a kick out of that. Jeff, I want to start with you on this one, and tell me about the fact that they did not take a cornerback. They released 3 people from their defensive backfield, yet they didn't draft anyone. Philadelphia, on the other hand, took 2 in their first 2 picks. I know you can't solve everything in one draft, but did you expect them to at least try?
I thought maybe in the 3rd round they might go cornerback, but I really think the first 2 picks fell the way that they wanted them to. And I think Roman Wilson's a really intriguing player. He also brings a mentality. He's kind of Deontay Johnson-esque, but he averaged 16 yards a reception and 19 yards the year before that. He wasn't used a ton, but he's got good hands. I think they just couldn't pass that up. And then when they got to the end of the 3rd round, Wilson's resume is incredible, and I know Dan Rooney scouted him and was excited about him, so I think they took a chance there.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't take a corner until Jerry Dulac reported that the Steelers have started discussions with Cam Sutton, who we know had an issue in Detroit, and I think they're going to wait to see how that plays out. But it makes perfect sense if Cam Sutton comes back.
Depending on the price, though, right? If it should be a really low price.
Don't you think they'll get him cheap now, though, after what he's been through?
He has no choice, does he?
Yeah, so you've put him in the slot. He's your versatile chess piece in the secondary again. I don't know that that's definitely going to happen, but it kind of makes sense. The way it played out, I think that's definitely
Would you endorse that, Chris, given what happened with him?
I mean, we'll see what all comes out still, I guess, and let it play out to a point. I mean, they know. I mean, we got to know Cam overall, and so I don't want to disparage him per se. It's obviously you hear the things that are out there, but the Steelers have always done, at least in recent years, as much as I always talk about this, Mike Tomlin loves talking about slot and nickel guys. When he goes through every week on Tuesday, he'll talk about the other team, slot and nickel guy, like he's the best guy in the league. Yeah. And he loves his own guys, and he gets excited about them, he talks about it. But then they're so disposable on them that they'll sign these guys in May every year. The Chandon Sullivans were after the draft last year. The Arthur Mollett was a late signee. Even KZ, who kind of Mike Hilton, they let walk, which is very rare. They let a starter walk. They don't care. They figure they could plug anybody in there who has a little skill set they can do almost to a point. And so I think they're still. I mean, Patrick Peterson's still out there.
He's still out there, right?
Yeah.
If it's not Sutton, maybe it's Patrick Peterson.
And they almost have another rookie in this class in Corey Trice,
Right.
because
Right.
they got a chance to see him in
he's-
OTAs and minicamp,
Right.
but not after that because of the knee.
And Chandon Sullivan's still out there too. Speaking of him, he can come back.
Corey
again,
Trice
too.
might be the key to this whole thing. If they really believe that he's going to be that guy, he can go opposite of Joey Porter Jr. We'll see. Now, Chris, I want to ask you about sleeper of this draft. Give me a name that is going to emerge as somebody say, wow, I don't care where he was drafted, I'm surprised at what they got out of whomever.
I mean, that's the thing. And until you got to their final pick, I feel like almost everybody could. I do like Mason McCormick a lot. I mean, I know we already talked about him some. I think he could. I think he will be a starting.
Is he going to play at all?
Well, I mean,
see, I look at him like I look at
right away.
Yeah, like this year, somebody who will you'll look at it. I can say that about Spencer Anderson. They like him too, right?
Yeah,
but he's hung around. I don't know much more about him than that.
A sleeper from this draft
Yeah,
class.
it could be a second round. It could be Frazier emerges as the best center in the game, whatever.
Oh, you mean down the field? Yeah, I mean, I think they got starters certainly with their first 2 picks. I think Peyton Wilson's going to play a major role right away. So I don't know if you could say that's a 3rd round pick. I think that he'll sort of, assuming he's healthy, and there's no reason to believe he's not. I think he'll play more than Landon Roberts will play. We'll see what happens to Cole Holcomb. I think he has potential to really be a star.
Yeah.
But they could really be with him and Patrick Queen in the middle of this defense.
Yeah, that could be.
I mean, they've
With
tried for
Landon
years and
Roberts,
years
too.
for that too.
I mean, he's and so what about you? Name, Ray, give me one.
I'm going to go Roman Wilson. He's a high character guy. Their new receivers coach tweeted something after the draft. He said he's a culture setter. Now, to me, that sends a message to George Pickens and everyone else in that receivers room. We just brought in a rookie, and I'm calling him a culture setter. So he's a good player, but I also think good blocker. But I think they need high character guys in that room, and I think he's a high character guy.
Well, I mean, you guys picked them all. I'm going to say Logan Lee because no one's mentioned him. Here's why I think he could make an impact right away. He blocked a couple of kicks at Iowa. He could work himself into that mix. Maybe if just by him being there, it kicks Leal into whatever gear he needs to be or to get into to be the player that they hoped he would be. So, I mean, I'll go with not as a huge impact, huge numbers guy, but maybe play some snaps and as a guy who can contribute and maybe make a player on special teams.
Along those lines, all these guys, I mean, it's amazing how there were some years, and I don't know if it's just, whether they do this intentionally or not, but when they have draft guys that are 21, 20 years old, they say, we like the young guys high floor or high ceiling. This draft class, all 4-year guys, 5-year guys, 6-year guy in there, all multi-year starters.
It's like all of them are married almost.
Yeah, a couple of them are married, a lot of captains.
They all work on a farm.
They're all
They
plug
got a
and
great
play.
work ethic.
Yeah, they can all be making impacts right away.
Right.
So I'm getting.
And they all tested great at the combine. Very good athletes. McCormick, Wilson, Logan Lee, all tested great.
Yeah, well, that's great. That sounds good. That's why everybody gives it an A, but we'll see when it goes to paper. They'll start OTAs, and then we have fifth-year option. Interesting, because Najee Harris falls into that. I think most people think he'll be here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks overall in this draft. Who will be the star of the quarterbacks, the first 6 taken, and who will be the biggest bust next? Most observers say every team had a great draft, maybe with the exception of the Atlanta Falcons. Why? They gave Kirk Cousins all this money, over $180 million, like $100 guaranteed, to go there to be their quarterback. But yet, in the 8th overall pick, Jeff Hathhorn, they took Michael Penix Jr. That looked very surprising to me, given the fact that he was not supposed to be that high of a pick to begin with, and they already signed their quarterback.
Let's recreate the Arthur Blank.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world are we doing here? I just signed a $100 million quarterback to win now, and now we draft somebody 8th overall when we have plenty of other needs, and pretty much the pick of the litter right there. I don't get it. Obviously, they think Penix is going to be a difference maker. And then one of the comments was, well, if he doesn't play for four or so years, and that's good for us. How?
Yeah.
Hey, listen,
By then it'll be 30 or something like
Michael
that. Right?
Penix is 24 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand you want to groom him a little bit, but at a certain point, you got to let a guy play too. So I'm like everyone else. I don't get it.
You imagine if Kirk Cousins was like a certain quarterback here when they took a 3rd-round quarterback and it's like, I don't understand. We have holes everywhere. That I'm sure Kirk Cousins might have thought that in his own little.
Sure, Aaron
gully
Rodgers
G way.
probably called Cousins and said, dude, I get you. I got
Does
it.
Cousins have his own radio show?
It'd be a good
Must
one to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. See, if the Falcons were taking Penix early in the 2nd round, then you could be a lot more. Well, we couldn't pass him up. We love him. We thought he's the best. Whatever it is.
Like Jordan Love.
And we want to. Yeah.
Right.
So, but at 8th overall, it seemed like that was a spot he was already way overdrafted anyway. And to do that in the situation you're in, when you have a 36-year-old starting quarterback, it just sort of. It's kind of like. I mean, the Steelers have a 36-year-old starting quarterback, and I wouldn't have thought. That's why I thought this year they shouldn't do that. And the Falcons paid a lot more for theirs, a whole lot more
Wow.
for theirs.
It's interesting. All right, so there were 6 taken in the first 12. That's highly unusual. There was a run on offensive players. I think we knew that. Ray, we'll start with you on this one. Give me the one name who will emerge as a really solid, if not Hall of Fame kind of quarterback, and one who would be a bust.
I don't know if there's a Hall of Famer in this class. I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going to go McCarthy because of the situation he's going to. If you look at the top 3 picks, they're going to go play for defensive head coaches. McCarthy's going to Minnesota. O'Connell is known as a quarterback guru. Harbaugh raved about the guy. Harbaugh's another quarterback guru. So, I think he'll be solid. I think he'll win games for them, but Hall of Fame, I don't know if there's anyone in this class who's
Bust? Give me a
bust. I'm going to go Caleb Williams.
That's who I like as a bust. I think watching the last few games, Chris, when he was at USC, the Notre Dame game in particular, he looked lost.
Yeah, he just.
And now they have all these things around him. Who would be your bust and who would be your big highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I see high bust potential in all 6 of these guys almost, and I don't know, maybe it's unfair to them, whatever. And I'm sure there will be a couple stars out of them, but it's for different. I don't want to go through all 6 of them, differing reasons, all 6 of them. I mean, May didn't really produce in college too well. I feel like that Caleb Williams, like kind of what you just talked about. Bo Nix might not want to be the safest because he has such a low ceiling. I feel like I don't. So I'll probably go with Jaden Daniels just because, I mean, he won the Heisman, and I get it. He was fantastic in college this past year, but obviously before that season, he sort of was just like average Arizona State quarterback for a few years. So it kind of came out of nowhere. So I'd say for the biggest bust potential. And man, I'd probably say McCarthy maybe is the safest one because I think he's going in a good situation, and I think he might have. But as I think we talked about, he reminds us of Kenny Pickett. We said the same thing a couple years about Kenny Pickett, having a safe high floor, and we don't.
But he's younger, which is good for them.
I am going to believe in Jaden Daniels, and I was going to go with him as the guy that I think is going to be the best of the 6. I don't know if any, to Ray's point, if any of those 6 are Hall of Famers. I think the biggest bust is Bo Nix. I mean, to go up to at 12, take a Bo Nix. Like, there's nothing about him that, at least with Penix, there's some excitement. He's got some escapability. He's got a big arm. I don't know if there's one thing about Bo
very
Nix.
Mac Jones vibes, like sort of like same spot in the draft. Like, we'll take him.
Was there anything that either at Auburn or at Oregon was like, man? I mean, he did win a lot of games, but so did a lot of quarterbacks at Alabama.
I have big questions about all 6 of them.
And that's the other thing. We've seen a run on quarterbacks, so no matter what year we're talking about, most of them don't live up to the expectations. When we come back, speaking of that, the Pirates are struggling right now. We're going to talk about Henry Davis, what to do with him, and also guys like Rowdy Tellez, whatever. It's all coming up next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back on this 25th anniversary season of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We remember 20 years ago, Ben Roethlisberger drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the rest is history. First ballot Hall of Famer to be. Meanwhile, we're talking about the Pirates now because they struggled again. They lost 2 of 3. They won last night, but it took 10 innings, and they only had 1 run through. Now, they've been in a hitting quagmire right now. And, Chris, I want to ask you about this because I'm going to start with this question. Henry Davis, who struggled, clearly. Now, he's catching. He's doing a pretty good job there. But every time he gets up, he's struggling. Twice this past week, they pinch hit for him in very critical situations. As a young catcher who's first overall, I wanted to see him bat. The 2 guys who pinch hit, McCutchen and Tellez, both struck out. Yeah. What should they have done there?
Yeah, I know. I agree. This is your point. I mean, I guess they're going to say they're trying to win now and they're not trying to develop anymore. But on a larger problem, that's your #1 overall pick that should be by now, maybe not your centerpiece, but the fact that they're 13 and 14 in a vacuum isn't necessarily alarming. And it's still early in the season, but the fact that a lot of they're supposed to be their tentpole marquee guys, or the Henry Davis, the O'Neal Cruz. I mean, Brian Ray didn't have a home run until Saturday night. Yeah. There's just guys that are supposed to be their core, and it's only 27 games. I don't get different head, but I don't know. Is Henry Davis? I mean, we're almost a year now, and I don't know how much we've seen from him as one example. I would have preferred. I mean, because Rowdy Tellez. I mean, not like Rowdy Tellez.
If he was hitting 400 with 17 home runs or something, fine. He had 1 home run. He was batting 169.
Yeah,
he comes up and strikes
worse.
out.
Yeah, no, I totally.
Would you send him down?
As soon as Grandal comes back, they got to send him down. I mean, he's not right. I mean, he's a #1 pick. You don't want to ruin his confidence when he's batting 150 at the major league level. Send him down for a month. Let him get his stuff together, work with his hitting coach, and then we'll see where it goes. But it's a month into the season. It's definitely disappointing where he is right now.
Yeah, and you're right. Whenever that happens, and it seems like that's been delayed again, that he might come up. When he does, there's a no-brainer that Davis goes down because Bart is out of options, and they like Joey Bart. And Bart was a #2 overall pick a few years ago. They like him. He's got to get from being so pool happy. I mean, Davis is just trying to pool everything. He's got to figure that out down in the minors, not at the major league level.
All right, I have 1 minute left. I'm going to get your into crystal ball prediction here. Chris, Paul Skeens, when will he be here? He has, I think, at least 2 more starts in the minors before he gets here. That's my bet on that. What do you think? Should it be sooner or will it be later?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, now that puts about to be in May. It's usually that second week of June is the whole arbitration. If you all made it, it's almost like you made it this far. I'd probably almost lean toward maybe not, but go toward the over. And here's the thing, and I think he's foolproof. I think what we've seen in terms of he's ready. But everybody thought Jackson Holliday was ready. Everybody thought Henry Davis was ready last year. Right. People say this, and they're like, the teams are just controlling their maybe, and probably not, but maybe he actually has stuff to work on, and it's actually good that he's still in the minors.
Bring him up now. Let him be Ohtani. Can he play first base? He hit it at LSU.
Yeah, that's right.
Dan
He likes
Zangrilli-
hitting too, by
Yeah,
the way.
Zangrilli said forever that it's going to be May 10th. I'm going to buy with him on that date. Makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Interesting because the Pirates started 9-2, and here they are now 5-13 after that. And the
Wasting
thing-
so many good pitching.
That's what I mean. Their starting pitching is actually some of the best in the league.
And
but
we
their
spent
hitting,
2 weeks
Bullpen's been a
knocking down games the Penguins
back
lost
end.
early in the year that cost them.
Yeah.
I hope we're not sitting back and saying, man, if it wasn't for a couple of these games.
Yeah, that's all it takes sometimes. All right, we'll find out. They got to go to Oakland, and that's never easy. But they may see Mason Miller, which is a good thing because he's got a big arm out of Bethel Park by way of Waynesburg University. Anyway, you know, to earn a great nickname, you got to do bigger and better things. And that really describes all 4 number 1 Cochran Ford stores. They're called the Ford-tastic 4 because customers can enjoy 4 times the pricing power, 4 times the selection, 4 times the thrills, plus get limited time offers right now. The Ford-tastic 4 have it all for you. So visit any one of the 4 number 1 Cochran Ford stores today or shop online at Cochran.com. We'll be right back. It's been fun, but we are done. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll do it again next Sunday night. The Pirates will come home next week, and who knows, maybe that'll be the debut of Paul Skeens. Although it's going to be soon, you would think. But they don't even, if he could hit, it would help. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Chris Adamski, Ray Fittipaldo, Jeff Hathhorn. We'll do it again, as I said, next Sunday night. Mark it down, 11:35 for the number 1 Cochran Sports Showdown, and have a great week.